Hello, Rash.
Hello.
Hello. And hello to everybody. Welcome to our E-Assessment Association AI Special Interest Group webinar, Beyond ChatGPT, Empowering Educators to Stay Current and Inspire Success with the Latest in Artificial Intelligence. My name is Anna-Kate Phelan. I'm Head of Product at Eintech, and I'm joining today in my capacity as a board member of the E-Assessment Association. In her talk, Dr. Rajeshwari Iyer, CEO of Synaptic, will explore AI tools beyond ChatGPT that can boost teaching and learning alongside organizational efficiency. Dr. Iyer has spent 2 decades developing and deploying domain-specific AI tools across healthcare and education. She earned her PhD in computational neuroscience from Imperial College London and holds an MPhil in computational biology from Cambridge, and led computational research at the London Ambulance Service before setting up her very own AI edtech venture, Synaptic. I'll let Raj begin, and if time allows, we can have some Q&A at the end. If not, we can get back to your questions offline. And I'll leave it to Raj to take it away. Looking forward to the talk, Raj.
Thank you so much, Anna, for the introduction. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Good morning, maybe, for some of you joining from abroad. Thank you so much for joining. And I really want to take this sort of opportunity to share, what I've learned being in AI for a long time now, and hopefully give you a few sort of pointers to take away on how you could be adopting AI, and really just empower you with what's there beyond ChatGPT. What's a sort of webinar without a little bit of basics on what AI is all about. So just very quickly, what I want to cover today shouldn't take more than 40 to 45 minutes, I would say. So I think leave enough time for questions. But I want to start with, what's out there, what the different types of AI are, how those kinds of AI tools are developed, and really put that within the context of education, because obviously we are all in the field of education in this audience. And then look at kind of the state of AI in education. So what I mean by that is, what the different types of AI are, but in what context are those kinds of AI being deployed within, higher education, schools, or even, vocational and technical qualification space. While we kind of do that, I'll also bring up some tools. We don't, I think, have time to really go through any of them as much as, hands-on that I would have liked to keep the webinar, because a lot of them are behind paywalls, and, you would like to get a demo from some of them before you try it out. But, some names and logos that you can kind of take away at the end of this webinar. And then really kind of ending with a couple of notes on just, my opinions on where we are with AI adoption, just from our experience, working with educators in the field. What can you do to be, good and early adopters of AI, and what kind of steps you could potentially follow to adopt AI and make that sort of successful and impactful within your own organizations. And then how do you stay current, right? It's changing quite rapidly. Every couple of months there are new updates, just even to ChatGPT alone. So how can you stay current in a very rapidly changing and evolving landscape, as ChatGPT would put it? So that's kind of just the agenda for the next sort of hour. And yeah, we would love to sort of hear your questions. We'll try and keep the questions for towards the end, if that's okay. And then, we'd also kind of like to know, I've kind of pitched the webinar at a very high level. We do want to do more of these as part of the AISIG, so the special interest group. So would love to hear also what else we can do in the future. So before sort of going into the meat of the webinar. Just about myself, very quickly, and of course, introduced me really well. Thank you so much. Like she said, I've spent last couple of sort of decades, 16, 17 years, building and deploying AI tools. So just to give you a flavor of some of the things that I've done, back in my engineering days, as an undergraduate student, I deployed an AI classification model, which just listening to sounds that we produce as ahs and ees and oos, to be able to classify vocal cord disorders just by listening to the sound. So all the way, through my academic career as well, worked in developing AI to look at how the brain functions, look at how little babies who've been hospitalized and undergo a lot of procedures in the hospital, can we use AI and other quantifiable methods to quantify the amount of pain that they are in. And lastly, I was in the NHS looking at patient records to see how we can improve not only like the operational aspects of the London Ambulance Service, but also can we improve the clinical services that we were providing just by looking at lots and lots of text-heavy patient data. So that's kind of my background. So I'm really sort of, happy that I have this opportunity and the platform to share a little bit about what I've learned over the years, but specifically in the last sort of 2 to 3 years being in the education sector. So I want to start very quickly. So if you can have your devices, just a mobile phone out, and if you could head to menti.com, this is a little sort of fun type poll that you will come across. And if you can put the code that you see on the screen here, I'll give you maybe a minute to just get yourself sorted. And I really want to know what it is that you think of. What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the phrase artificial intelligence? So if you can get your devices out, phone is fine, or even the laptop, a new tab, type in menti.com. And if you can put that little code there. Then if I head to, okay, machines, efficiency, yeah, LLM. Future, excitement, okay, potential, amazing. Robots taking over. Hopefully that won't happen soon enough. Innovation, hallucination, okay. Amazing. I mean, certainly the future is going to be AI. Well, it's already here. Quick ideas, ChatGPT, scary, okay. Image gen, text tool. Misinformation. Copilot, opportunities, ease of access. Super. That is amazing. I hope you can all see the outcome of what we've just done, and the size of the sort of word. I mean, it's a regular word cloud. So future, efficiency, potential. So I'm super happy to see that everyone's mostly quite optimistic about the use of AI, which is really, really good. Okay, I think almost everyone has put their answers in. So this is super fun. Thank you so much. Unbelievable, yes. Dependency, Turing, Can't we get here to answer? Yes, we could have, but I want to know what you think. Thank you. This is super cool. So thank you so much. And yeah, as I said, I'm really excited to see in general, I think everybody is quite positive. And also, you know, a year ago when I did the same poll, there was a lot of LLMs and ChatGPTs, and, you know, mostly that was what was in the sort of center of the cloud, which just made me realize that actually there's a lot of what do you say, misconception about what AI is. And I still sort of see that. Sorry, I just want to go to the next slide. There we go. And yeah, there was a lot of misconception on, you know, what AI was, and mostly people think that if we are developing AI tools, it's sort of, oh, so what does your LLM do, and those kinds of things. So I really thought that it's important that we take a step back to actually see the whole sort of map of AI, and this is all of the different types of AI that there is. And ChatGPT is really just sitting right up there. And so although, you know, ChatGPT has really exploded into the sort of scene, as you can imagine, there's a whole lot of different types of AI that we sort of see and we come across on our daily lives, but also within the context of education. And we'll go a bit more into that in a second. But before that, can we again sort of just take a step back and go to the next question? How would you define artificial intelligence? So what you told me before was what comes to your mind when you think of artificial intelligence, but what is artificial intelligence? Anyone? What do you think? Pattern recognition? Yeah, search engine. Database of items. Okay, that's interesting. Yes. Simulation of human intelligence. Amazing. Yeah. A learning model that grows based on prompting and information. Reproducing human brain abilities. Absolutely. The ability to research, think. Exactly. Yes, it's all of these things, right? Technology-aided processing. Yeah. Giving intelligence to machines. Perfect. Thank you. You're all absolutely right. It's almost all of those things. And so it's exactly what you all just said. It's the development of a computer software or a program or a machine, maybe a robot, to do things just as how humans would do it, right? And there's two sort of very high level, two types of AI that we see in commercial settings. There's a rules-based AI, which is really just if this, then you do this. So if, for example, a thermostat, if the temperature goes above 30 degrees, then bring it down to sort of 25. So rules-based systems. And then the more data-driven systems is what we are seeing more of today. So what's on your phones, what's Internet of Things, some of the applications that you might be using, your marking and feedback and your content generation. So all of that is very much data-driven tools, which means that a lot of data has gone in to train these software systems to be able to produce an output. So for example, it could be a classification system, it could be a predictive model, it could be a recommendation engine, and so on. So the likes of Netflix, so the more you use Netflix and the more you watch the same types of programs, it then starts to recommend more of that kind, for example. So typically, data-driven systems, they need a lot of data to be able to do those tasks to a really high degree of accuracy. Now, it takes a lot of effort, to be honest, to build a data-driven AI system. It's taken billions of pounds or dollars for OpenAI to do what it does. And so, these are sort of very high-level iterative process. You need to define a task for the model to do. So the very defined task that you train an AI model to, it's a lot better in terms of its efficiency and accuracy at which it would perform that task. And then you go through a model selection, or if you're truly AI company, you would be developing those models from scratch. You've got to make sure that you collect data from a wide range of sources in order to not have bias in them, making sure that the quality of the data is really, really high, because as you may have heard, what goes in comes out. You've got to then prepare the data for it to be AI ready, which means that it can be fed into an AI model to be trained. You've got to then evaluate it and then deploy it. And it's an iterative process. So it's time consuming, it is expensive, and it's a super cool sort of innovative procedure that we have to go through in order to be able to build machines that are intelligent, just as how we define them. So one more mentee. So the next question is, I'd like to know, how do you, if you're already using AI in your practice, or how would you like to use AI within your own teaching practices or assessment practice? Not necessarily what tools you use, but more sort of for what purpose or what the use cases are. And by sharing that, it might just give everybody else ideas on something that they may have not thought of, actually. Creating assessment, checking for malpractice, resource materials. So is that like content generation, I guess? Gamification, yeah. Essay scoring, automating workflows, idea generation. Not sure how to use it yet. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Content creation. Letter writing, that's something I use it for as well. For accuracy, okay. Sounding board. Adaptive learning, I think, yeah, okay. Processing initial data, that's amazing, okay. Thank you, yeah. I hope, some of the others can also get an idea of what everybody in the room is doing, and maybe it's something that you didn't think of. And you can go back and look for tools to help you in those things. Thank you. This is super useful. Amazing. And it also looks like, the audience is quite ahead in AI adoption, which is super. So just going back to, where we are, the state of sort of AI within the education sector, just from, what we are seeing interacting with not just clients, but also other developers and so on. So, as I said, ChatGPT was right here. This is more a deep learning type AI model. So deep learning is really trying to deeply replicate how the human mind works and learns and retains information, and generates sort of new information based on what the previous experiences are. And what we see mainly is that these kinds of models are being deployed for content creation, training material creation. It could be text from lots of different bite-sized content being developed from lots of different sources of information and so on. Conversational learning has become quite popular. It's being deployed in not just schools, but even in sort of medical training and so on. Tutor bots, very much similar to conversational style learning. Natural language processing, again, these are sort of closely related to one another, but I've just sort of tried to classify it in that way, given the map of AI, which was borrowed from somewhere. So NLP is now being heavily deployed in marketing, feedback, and analytics. We have computer vision. It's been around for a number of years, and it's sort of now making its way into the education system, where a lot of computer vision is being deployed for tracking attendance, facial recognition, and so on, especially within the higher education space, and also in slightly sort of developing nations where attendance and so on is quite hard to keep track of. It's also being used for online proctoring, handwriting recognition, where you have your optical character recognition and so on. And then, AR, VR is suddenly now just exploding into the education world, when, it was mainly for sort of simulation-based learning, starting off, from the medical field. Machine learning, again, very sort of basic type of AI in that sense, where, it's been traditionally been around for a long time, being used for, deriving deep insights from lots of different types of data and sources, which then helps to make targeted sort of recommendations, and also sort of deriving analytics. Now, the advantage of this is not just being able to derive insights and analytics and make recommendations just based on multiple choice questions, but because now we have the ability to automate marking and give feedback beyond multiple choice questions, there is now the huge potential to give deeper insights and give better recommendations and much more analytics based on unstructured data. So this could be audio submissions, it could be essays or reports, that it's more sort of relevant for the audience here, more like in the certification or in higher education settings. I will talk a little bit more about that just in a bit. Robotics, again, it's making its way sort of into STEM teaching and learning. It's been around again for medical training for a while. I think it's mainly cost, and also it's quite difficult to develop and deploy these sort of systems, and so the adoption has been slow, but hopefully with reduction in costs and so on, we should see better uptake in those robotic type systems for learning. And then expert systems. Many times expert systems are rules based, and they've been used for making adaptive tests, and therefore paving a sort of path for personalization, and personalized learning, basically. So this was kind of just me trying to show what kinds of AI is being deployed today within the education sector. It is quite sort of varied, to be honest, levels of adoption and the kinds of tools that are being developed. It's quite varied from, there's a lot of noise in the school sector for essay marking, as well as in the HE. but content creation and tutor bots, very, very much for the K-12 sector, because they're all leveraging the knowledge base of large language models to be able to very quickly deploy these with a sleek front end and so on. So just going back to, why isn't this working? Just going back to the fact that we're at different stages of deployment and adoption. Sorry, just pardon me. We can see that, right? I think so. Okay. Just because we're at different levels of adoption, especially sort of younger training providers. I introduced this framework almost a year ago, perhaps at the last sort of BMC talk, and I had pretty decent response. People coming back asking for more on this sort of framework that we share with companies who are still not there in terms of AI adoption, but even sort of just struggling to become digitally transformative. And so it's a play on the word Tinder, the app, but it has nothing to do with dating. It's a framework that we tend to share with some organizations that need that little bit of extra help on identifying how they can successfully adopt and implement and select AI for their use cases. And so really it's an acronym. So T is just technology readiness level. So one really needs to take a step back and see where you are in terms of just technology, because AI comes after digital. So are you even there in terms of the digital infrastructure that you've got in your organizations or departments within the larger organization to be able to successfully adopt an AI tool? Because AI is already quite sort of new and it's scary. We saw that in the word cloud as well. So you don't want to invest time and money adopting AI just because, only to sort of say that, oh yeah, it didn't work for us because we were not technologically or digitally ready. And so we really want to make sure that you have some sort of a framework to be there before you can take that next step. The other thing that you've got to think of is, what is the real impact that adopting AI is going to have on your business? What kind of impact is it going to have on your students? And on, maybe assessors or other business leaders within the organization. And so what is it really, do you really need AI to have that impact on your business is sort of the bigger question that you've got to think of. And then decide on, where, if you're able to sort of rank the impact, is it business, is it, student outcomes that you want to improve, is it assessor workload or whatever it may be. So you have those buckets and rank them and then ask yourselves, do we really need AI or can we do something else to kind of get us to make that impact on that business function? And is it really the natural next step, right? Do you think humans or, do you think some of your existing operational aspects within the organization are good enough to help you achieve that impact on the business or on your other stakeholders? So AI really has to be the natural next step before you go to implement or, buy into a tool. This comes from personal experience. So as you can imagine, there's huge, there's a big sort of want to use AI in the business within the education setting. Everybody's using it, so you want to use it. But actually, even when we get clients, we look at their data and it's not there yet. As I said, in order to, deploy AI properly and to the best sort of it's to have the best impact that that AI tool can have for you, you need to not just be technologically ready, but your data needs to be ready as well. For example, the data has to be prepared, in our case at least, to train the model before it can be deployed for auto-marking your assessments or what may be. For example, for content creation, if you're using lots and lots of different files that you already have, that were originally used to create content, but now you're looking to maybe use one of the video creating tools to make bite-sized videos based on that content, PDFs, like that's not going to be any good. And so you've got to ensure what kind of data, is it structured, is it organized in a manner that can be readily used by other tools or apps to digest that information and make that used in the best possible way. So that's kind of just looking at your data readiness levels. And then use cases. Now, this is also sort of related to impact. So where is the most impact that you want to make within the context of your own business, and what the use cases are? So really list out, department by department or stakeholder-wise, where do you think you want maximum impact as part of your business goals, and then where does AI fit in within those use cases? And lastly, but I think very, very importantly, it's responsibility. So somebody or a few people within the organization have to take responsibility. They have to take it upon themselves that we are going to be the champions. We understand tech very well. We understand AI very well. And therefore, it's upon us to make sure that we will deliver AI adoption for our organization. And we've seen very often that you don't necessarily have these kinds of champions, and then it not just doesn't work for you as an organization. It also means that the AI developer has lost their business as well. So I think responsibility is quite key. And as soon as that sort of responsibility comes in, you take ownership. There's more motivation, and you ensure that you're taking all the necessary steps to be able to adopt AI as successfully as you could. So really, if you're at that stage where you are looking at wanting to adopt AI, what does AI even, what does good AI look like? There are a myriad of tools out there. So how do you know that you are getting the best? You may have heard of explainable AI, reliability, and ethical, and so on, but they are super important. And that's why, people are constantly talking about it. So what does explainable AI mean? AI historically has been a black box. The way machine learning works or statistical models work is that it's very hard to pinpoint exactly why a recommendation was made, because of the fact that a huge number of data points go into making the AI model do what it does. And so there's a lot of work happening just within the AI field to make sure that we use other ways in which we can show that our AI knows what it's saying or what it's doing. So it has to be explainable. You should be able to retrace the steps that the AI has taken in order to make a particular recommendation or give out an answer, for example. And it has to do that reliably. It has to do that consistently. So we saw hallucinations that came up when you hear about AI. It's not true. Not all types of AI hallucinate. It's only sort of generative AI type models that hallucinate, and therefore that makes them less reliable. Hallucination is really just statistically what's the most likely sort of thing that an LLM gives out as a response, and for various reasons which cannot be explained, it might very convincingly say something which people who are non-experts will very happily believe, but it won't do that reliably because it's hallucinating. So more sort of traditional classification-based AI models, they do their job a lot more reliably and a lot more consistently. So for example, if you're looking at marking and feedback, it means that the same answer or a similar answer has to be marked 100 times, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times in the exact same way when the first answer was marked, right? So that's sort of reliability and repeatability. And ethical, I think we all kind of understand now that we've got to make sure that AI models are being trained on data that have been sourced ethically. We're not sort of, breaching copyrights. We're not using PII. We're making sure that there's no bias within the data that we use to train a model for whatever purpose that it's being trained for. So really just some questions that you should be thinking about when you're interacting with suppliers is, what underlying models are you using? How has the technology actually been validated for, the purpose of what it's meant to do? Have there been some human comparisons made? Whatever it may be, right? So how has the technology's efficacy been benchmarked, and against what? And what kind of data was the model trained on? Who's in the team? Who is developing the AI tools? Are these AI experts? Are these pedagogical experts? So it's nice. So, and don't fear to ask these questions. So just before sort of we close, going back to the sort of AI map that we had, we saw that some sort of AI is used for content creation, conversational learning, tutor bots, and so on. So you don't have to take notes. Like I could possibly share the slide deck later on. But some of the logos here, it's I don't have anything to do with them, honestly. But I kind of know that these are some of the more reputed or more successful tools out there. So Course Magic is quite nice for content creation, for training providers, especially if you're trying to create bite-sized video type content. Sethco is a nice API based conversational bot. TutorBot is something, it's mostly for sort of school learning children, but it's been sort of quite popular recently. Marking and feedback and analytics, of course, Synaptic does that great. And OneFile's analytics is super interesting because they use machine learning and so on to derive very deep insights of their apprentice data, even so much that they can identify early dropouts. But it's hard to kind of find analytics tools that would plug into something that you're already using. It's mostly, the platform that you are using should have some sort of analytics already built in, and some of that might be based on AI. So sort of attendance tracking, so Web Occult, they have a couple of tools that can be used, and it is being used in the higher education sector for tracking of students attending lessons and lectures and so on, and it's based on facial recognition. Rosalind is a really nice sort of API-based proctoring tool or service that they offer. Metaverse, I think quite a few would have heard about Metaverse's AR, VR, training material development tools. Handwriting recognition, of course, Synaptic does it as part of the marking and feedback loop. There's another company mainly for schools, Stylus, they do handwriting recognition and center-based testing and so on. Class VR, Centira XR, these are well-known sort of AR, VR tools that I use, but within the sort of STEM and professional training sector. Fabrio, I don't know if you've heard of Fabrio, but it's very, very focused on CAD and design, but they've got, very high quality instant feedback on students wanting to learn CAD. So for me personally, like these kinds of tools that are so domain specific, these are the ones that will have like maximum value when it's being deployed for that purpose, because they've been trained on domain specific data and so on. I don't really have any logos for these because, as I said, in most cases, like it's the learning management system or the e-assessment platform that you'd already been using, they would have some sort of insights and analytics going within the platform already. So you don't really have too many API-based analytics only type AI to market. But I just want to sort of, this is very crowded, but there are lots of logos in there, lots of different sort of AI use cases, and you can have a look, when I share the slide with you. And they should give you ideas on, who you could potentially try out for your own use case. But a note on personalized learning. I've spoken a lot about this, and the problem with personalizing learning, although there's huge potential to be able to do that with, the leaps and bounds of work that's been now recently done on AI. Personalized learning works most effectively when we actually have access to a large amount of data, but over many, many years. Now that's called longitudinal data. And that kind of setting, I mean, within the professional environment, it's quite hard to find because you do a course, you kind of pass the test, you get certified and you move on. But it's super important when, if we're able to get access to a child from primary school all the way to, their entire sort of career and pathway. So imagine what we could do if we had access to that kind of data, which we don't. Again, multimodal data is super important because, just like NHS, they have access to our entire sort of, background, where we come from, what our history is, alongside what's sort of happening today in our lives. So similarly, and it comes from different sort of sources, and it's of different types in terms of modality. And so imagine like if we had access to multimodal data of a student or a learner. So if they were learning using audio best, or if they were a visual learner, they submit more different kinds of assessments, but also how are they with attending lessons, and are they more verbal in class, or are they more quiet? So it's a holistic picture of a learner that helps AI to personalize learning a lot more than, for example, just MCQ assessments. And all of this is possible only if we have cross-product integration, which again, we don't, because of, just no two suppliers want to directly integrate with each other, especially if you're competing. And, there's a lot of GDPR and lots of legal issues to deal with. And there's no standardized framework, something that would work, or if I would deploy as part of Synaptic, it might not work for, another company in another setting. What works for higher ed may not work for, schools or the vocational sector. And so I don't have a solution, but, it's just things that I wanted to share just as kind of food for thought today. And lastly, things are moving quite quickly, and I strongly encourage everyone to just try as much as possible to stay on top of, where AI is going, what others are doing. There are lots and lots of, there's lots of information out there, honestly, but these are just some sort of hand-picked, podcasts and newsletters that I've signed up to and I personally follow. Test community is super interesting and super up-to-date. Tim Burnett, as always. At Technical, this is a very, very nice podcast. Libby Hills, they talk not just AI, they talk about like tech and technology and AI and everything within the context of education, and not just sort of higher ed and so on. It's throughout. So super interesting. Of course, there's Skinny on AI for Education, Professor Rose Luckin's newsletter as well, and Al Kingsley, his LinkedIn newsletters are super useful. So I think that is me today. So if you have any questions. It's difficult to conceptualize what readiness means in this context. Is that technology readiness?
I think so. It was further on in the further back in the presentation that Stuart asked it. So I think maybe it was that.
So, for example, Innovate UK, the innovation body of UK, they have a very nice tiered ranking for technology readiness. So, are you sort of just in the thinking or idea phase of, yeah, maybe I need to have an LMS to, be able to deploy and run my courses, or are you, at a place where you've got a very well end-to-end system in place? So digital infrastructure is all there. AI is just the only next thing that's left for us to do. So if you're able to sort of tier that readiness level within your organizations or departments to kind of rank, where you are in terms of technology readiness, that would kind of help with the next step of where would AI fit in with our AI adoption readiness levels.
Brilliant. Do we have any more questions from the group? Just wait a second to see if anything else pops in. Well, while we're doing that, feel free if questions are still percolating. First off, I wanted to thank you so much for that presentation, Raj. That was amazing. Really informative. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, my pleasure.
And Samuel's already wondering how we can connect with you after this.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to, if we can look me up. So Rajeshwari@synaptic.com is my email ID, but yeah, Rajeshwari, connect me on LinkedIn.
And the next one that's come up, let's see. One aspect of AI, oh, here we go. One aspect of AI adoption for many institutions in my area is really cost, especially considering technology such as AI chatbots, where it's hard to estimate annual costs. Do you have any insights advice? That's a great question, Kenji.
It is, yes. And you're absolutely right. As I sort of tried to allude to the fact that developing AI tools is quite, expensive, it's time consuming, and therefore they are expensive today. I mean, LLMs is it's a whole new ball game. When you're using LLM-based apps at scale, you will be looking at a few thousands, in a month. But honestly, like that's what the AI companies will be paying in terms of API costs to the likes of OpenAI or, Google or whatever it might be, right? So yes, it is expensive. It also kind of means that we are slightly moving backwards, all of us actually. The more we use LLMs, we are contributing more to carbon inefficiencies, and we are all moving backwards in our sort of journey to become, carbon neutral and so on. So it is something that we should talk about. There are no answers yet, but I think we're still at that stage where this is new tech. Let's sort of use it and see how it works best for us, and then the carbon neutral and sustainability and so on will probably follow on. But I appreciate that, yes, these tools are expensive, but hopefully the more they get standardized and commoditized almost within daily usage, then the costs should start to come down. We're already seeing that with LLMs, your GPTs, the subscriptions and so on.
Yeah, makes sense. We have another one. Okay. Oh, this is an interesting question from Richard.
Can you impose limits on a teacher or student's use of AI in order to keep costs down? I mean, technically, yeah, that's possible. You can always, set allowances for how you use it. You could have company-wide, best practices or policies in place where you do have such limits imposed. However, I do think that has to come from the organization. So it depends on what your perspectives are, what the reasons for imposing those limits would be. Of course, cost is one thing. There could be other reasons as well for imposing the kinds of interactions that you might have. Now, cost is a big issue, especially for LLM-based models where there is, pay as you go in place. And so that's where there is inherently in a tiered pricing model, you would already have those sort of limits on number of tokens or number of, length of essay that you can get marked and so on. But when you're choosy about who you want to work with, then it is possible to keep your costs down when you have, other non LLM or more traditional machine learning and AI based tools where the running costs for even the company that's the supplier, their own running costs are low. So therefore, they will be able to offer a much more cost effective solution to the clients.
Yeah, makes sense. And we have another more a challenging question in a sense. In terms of the education sector, where would you recommend more deterministic AI models? Or has generative AI reached a stage where we can trust the output with guardrails in place?
So the second question, so Gen AI reached a stage where we can trust the output. I think that's fairly true as long as, the app or the provider has put all of the guardrails in place. We are starting to sort of see, comparable outputs to human sort of markers or, human developers. I think it's the use case. So where we would recommend more sort of deterministic style models is in a more high stakes environment where, you do have that accuracy and the reliability of the output has to be there. You cannot. So summative exams, for example. Whereas, low stakes item generation, your content creation, those kinds of things, it's doable only with Gen AI, to be honest. We don't have deterministic models that would be able to create a nice, bite-sized video for learning in a matter of minutes. And so there we don't have a choice. So we will have to, but as long as you have that human in the loop and you have experts kind of reviewing what the AI has produced, so, having those guardrails in place, then I think you're good to go.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. And it is a case of, regardless, it's a human in the loop aspect.
Yeah.
Another great question. So what's your view of open source LLMs versus foundational models from OpenAI, Google, etc.? And what about the emergence of Chinese models?
Oh, I wish my CTO was here to answer that. But I think the kind of short answer is they're good at doing different things better than each other. So it's really, you've got to, take the time and effort to just compare models for the particular use case that you want to. In our experience, OpenAI, they've been, OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, actually, they're all sort of really, really high quality. They've all been benchmarked to a very high level of accuracies. So for summarization, question answering, those kinds of general sort of use cases, they're all sort of comparable to each other. I'm not sure about Chinese models, to be honest. I don't think we've even tried any of them. Yeah, the sort of more kind of traditional ones, I think they're quite good at the general sort of English language tasks.
Okay. Yeah, all I've seen is in the media, essentially. I think it was a DeepSeek, and apparently just came out of nowhere.
Yes.
And it was incredible. So I see
That's right.
we have 5 more minutes left. So I think we'll take one last question from Richard. and then we just have some announcements to make. So would you see the future of examinations being on demand and marked instantly rather than the current twice-a-year exam sessions? This is the big question, and something that's been playing on a lot of people's minds in the assessment industry.
Yes, absolutely. And I think awarding bodies are very aware of, the changing situation and just the evolving needs of, the Gen Z, of, the sort of what the next century basically needs. Assessments as such, I don't see them going away, but it's, the way we assess, right? So it's more regular. People are just going about their job or they're just learning, and kind of assessments is just happening in the background. And, they're getting that regular feedback, and, they're more responsive because they didn't even know that they actually just went through a test. And so it's nice to kind of get that feedback just on the go and on demand. So very much, I think that's how we should go. And from, my interactions with awarding bodies, they're very, very much looking to see, in kind of introspecting themselves and their own ways of working. Look, K-12, like that's a whole new, that's a different perspective, but certainly adult learning, I think a lot of forward-thinking awarding bodies are very much looking to kind of work towards that, where, you don't have that one summative or two summative, but it's all just happening on demand and on the go kind of.
Yeah, this is the thing, and it's
so much less.
Yeah, I think you were going to say what I was going to say.
Okay. Yeah. I was just going to say less pressure on students as well. So actually, they might be performing a lot better than they would in a summative exam.
Oh, definitely. And less pressure on the awarding organisation themselves. I'm sure there's many people on this webinar right now that know the heat of exam season, the heat of the marking period, and all of the various stages. To be able to optimise on that level and serve the candidates in the way you want to. You can see that happening, but I suppose as well, it is obviously, and it needs to be, a highly regulated and considered industry. So it's going to take a little bit of time. Go in that direction, for sure. Okay, so I think we're at the end of the questions. There's some announcements that I'd like to make. So first off is you should see at the bottom of your screen a call to action to join our special interest groups. Hopefully it'll pop up for you, in AI, healthcare and proctoring. So right now this is a webinar that was put on in conjunction with the AI special interest group. But we have all sorts of different special interest groups at the EAA, and we'd really like everybody in the industry to get involved, have your say, and it's just a great opportunity to meet like-minded colleagues. So I just encourage everybody on the call to please, if any of these sectors interest you, to join one of our groups. Really appreciate it. And the second on AI in specific is our AI survey. So this is your chance to input into the future of assessment. We'll get an idea of the lay of the land as to what people's current feelings are on AI. So please take the time to input into this survey. And then last but very much not least, if you have any ideas for further webinars or any feedback on Raj's fantastic webinar, please pop them in the chat and we can have a look at them. Or if you'd like to email the EA, go ahead. But that'll be very helpful for us moving forward so we can think of content for the next session. And thanks again to Raj.
Thank you. My pleasure. And if somebody wants to get in touch, of course, just feel free to share my email.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, we'll share your email, and you can add people on LinkedIn and all of that as well.
Yeah.
All right, brilliant. Well, thanks a million, everybody. I'll speak to you very soon. Cheers.
Have a lovely afternoon, everyone.